hear that?
I did hear that.
Yeah. So
Nice.
Cool. Okay, so I figure that I got 2 drinks out here. Perrier. Gotta have that.
Nice.
I've been drinking a lot of that lately. Pepsi, eh? Pepsi,
We're not sponsored by Pepsi.
I wish we were. I got Gatorade. Which is
Cool.
Pepsi product. All right, so we're gonna start.
Drinks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I gotta have something.
Yeah.
How warm is it in there? That's like probably 76 where you're at right now in your room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so comfortable.
It's a little chilly. I got to put a little sweater on. I'm a little bit chilly, a little cold, a little freezing. Okay, so I'm gonna start. Are you good to go? You ready? Okay.
I'm ready.
Can't read my ammo shirt.
Oh, I don't have mine on.
Ah.
Sorry.
They're gonna throw stuff at us. No, they won't. Okay, cool. Just say it's an ammo shirt and the logo's really low. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Crazy Double J's Weathering Podcast with myself, James Powell, and that guy over there,
Jason Jensen.
Oh, that guy. Yeah. It's with Jason Jensen. Hey, this is season 2, episode 2, which is actually our 5th episode. Wow, that's moving on up there. We're getting old. We're old guys.
We're rolling right along.
We're rolling along, man. And I'll tell you, I gotta, if you guys hear like this weird droning noise, it's because I have this big fan that I just bought. I went out and paid $150 for a floor fan so I could at least kind of work in my garage now that it's August in Fresno, California. And it's only been 100 degrees every day since like May. It is ridiculous. I mean, it is. We're now, we're in August and it's been 100 degrees. It's really draining. It really is. Trying to model when it's that hot is.
But now you have a giant fan
that blows hot air on me. That's right. It's like a convection oven now. The air is blowing on me. However, it's not a bit cooler. It maybe makes it a little bit nicer, but it's still hot air blowing on me. It is. I can't wait till I build my shed. I cannot wait till I build my model building shed, and I don't know. I'm in a garage. I'm not going to put air conditioning in the garage because as soon as the door opens up, which it does all the time, all the air is going to go out, and So I'm going to make an insulated shed. Either that, or I'm moving to like Inuit territory.
Colorado?
Well, maybe Canada. I was in Colorado the other day. Jason knows I was there for a couple hours. I was on a layover in Denver, and it wasn't horrible. But I think I went through there. I was going to Dallas, and on my way back, it was warmer. I think it was in the mid 90s, if I remember right. I mean, Denver Airport, it's all concrete. It's probably like the biggest slab of concrete on Earth. I believe that's actually true. And
wow,
it's huge. It's like the biggest concrete pour ever. So it's really hot there, right? Even when it's not super hot, that concrete just heats up and reflects and bounces right onto you. So it gets warm. But that's just wow. I'm really tired of the heat. Colorado would be great. Colorado, or I don't know. I think maybe, where would I want to move if I didn't live in California? Has to be in the United States. Can't be Hawaii.
Yeah.
Because that's, you can't do anything if you live in Hawaii.
I know we're completely off topic, but Colorado's beautiful.
Oh,
it's just beautiful year round, and it's dry here. That probably surprises a lot of people, but it's actually really dry here. We don't have humidity.
Not like Texas.
So the winters are nice. The summers are nice.
I love
it.
In Texas,
I'm here to stay.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't blame you. I love Colorado. I love the mountainous part of Colorado. It's just Denver's really cool. I have a few cousins that live in Colorado Springs. Um, yeah, it's really nice. Oh, ooh, I just hit my microphone. My a niece of mine who's actually older than me lives in Colorado. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
so yeah, it's actually I wouldn't mind being there. I know that Dallas when I was there was about 100 degrees with about 99% humidity. So that's fun. That's similar to the Fresno fun. Instead of a blast oven like you have here, there it's more of a like a rice steamer.
Yeah.
Either way, it's miserable. But so I'm always whining about how hot it is, and people say, "Why don't you just move?" Because I work here. So it's kind of hard to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, no. But yeah, so we figured today's topic, being off topic, we didn't even have a topic yet. So hey, no, today's topic is we're going to talk about setting the mood on your layout, right? And actually trying to get people to feel like they're in
dimming the lights, lighting the candles, right,
burning some incense, right, or sending candles,
exactly,
throwing rose petals all over the place, getting it all ready. No, actually, when you walk into a layout and you're not trying to get into that kind of mood. Well, maybe you are. I don't know. Some guys are lucky or ladies are lucky enough to have people their significant others in model railroading, right? Or building models.
Yes.
You don't have that and I don't have that. So, but
no,
not at all. Not at all. But
no.
No, more about setting the time period, setting the feel of that layout. When somebody's viewing that layout, yeah, you want to have them, I guess, feel like they're in that environment, right?
Yeah.
I know that there's a lot of people that maybe they'll like I know Art Fahey at Bar Mills, he built a station, an actual station to put his layout in, right?
Yep.
Or people will maybe decorate the walls or make it look like you're inside a depot, or they'll have tchotchkes around or whatever.
Sure.
I am talking more about like what Art did, where he built a depot. So you have that kind of all-encompassing feeling.
So maybe more the decor around your layout.
Maybe not just the decor, but the sense of the layout itself.
Okay.
Right.
Sure.
Maybe even
some people I think are doing it purposely, setting that mood, and then some people I think it is just their what's the word I'm looking for? It's their style of modeling that just is showing through that they don't even realize.
Right. Exactly.
You look at your work, you see a picture of your work online, and that's James Powell. That's Dirt Spot Seb.
If you follow me. If you're one of the 17 people that follow me. Well, yeah, I definitely think that, as modelers, we kind of have, if you're really, really into it and you kind of throw all you have at it, you definitely will get kind of a look and a feel, right?
You'll develop a style the longer you do it.
You'll develop a style. I'm thinking, and this is one of the reasons why I'm talking about, building like the shed in my backyard. I want people when they walk in right now, you could see the layout and it's not that big, right? It's very small right now. I think it's 2 foot by 6 foot or 2 foot by 8 foot right now. It's very small. It'll end up being in here. It'll be 2 by 12, 2 by 14 or so. It's not going to be very big, but no matter what, and I know a lot of people don't have the luxury. I don't have the luxury of this, but I'm going to make it happen. No matter what, you're still in a garage, right?
Yep.
I'm thinking about when I think about like how you are working on your sci-fi models, and you had just talked
Yeah.
about taking that room and giving it almost some theming, right?
Yes. Yep.
Making when the people walk in, whether it be the trains, be it the sci-fi, they're going to feel like they're in an environment, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
and I kind of think that's somewhat of what I'm talking about. Also, we
I
could talk
compare
about
it to like being at a theme park, being at Disneyland. You
sure,
walk into a shop and it's not just a shop, but if you look at the walls and the ceiling and everything, it definitely sets a mood. They have a whole theme in the shop.
right, right,
So
exactly.
I want to I want to have a theme to the room, especially for my sci-fi layout.
Hmm.
Have a theme for the room, and then it just so happens to have my
Railroading.
G-scale sci-fi
Oh
layout
well,
in it.
right, right. And
So yeah,
I mean, I'm thinking I had thought about a couple different ideas for my shed, right?
uh-huh.
You have a room that's inside of your house, which is your basement, right?
Yep, yep.
Correct. Okay. And so obviously you're not going to change the outside of your house
Yeah,
to
no.
look like Star Wars, even though that would be pretty cool. No, I'm all for that.
Right.
But the shed I'm planning on building, it would be like 12 by 10. So decent size for a shed, right? And originally I thought I want to make it look like a hobbit house, right? Just to give it some kind of character. But then I started thinking, and I talked to Jake Johnson about this. You know, they did the Walt Disney Carolwood Barn for
Yeah. Yep.
their company, and Crescent Creek Models, right? And
Yeah.
they did a O scale version. Now they're doing an HO version. And I thought, man, it would be really cool to make this like a miniature yet full size Carolwood barn. You know, the Carolwood barn is already kind of scaled down. It's like 3/4 scale, right? But I would do it
Yep.
even more so. But that would be really kind of fun. So it'd be this, I don't
Yeah.
want to say caricature, but it would have a lot of character. It'd be a small version of the Carolwood barn that would have the layout in it. So it wouldn't
Yeah.
look as crazy as something like a hobbit house in the backyard, right?
Yeah.
But it would still kind of have a barn feel, and I really like that. So I think that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I think the idea of getting your guest, right, and that's one thing I'm not set up to have, is to have some kind of guest come over once this layout's done, just because it's in a
Sure.
garage. You know,
Yeah.
there's no place
Yep.
to sit down. There's no place to really hang out. You know,
Yeah.
and I kind of want to do that. I've
Mhm.
always really wanted a pot-bellied stove, so I have to do that. You know, I just
Yeah.
imagine when it's actually cold outside, which, man, I don't know if it's ever going to be cold outside anymore. Where, you know, you sit and burn your little kindling in the stove to keep yourself warm. I've always wanted to do that. So, burn your leftover kit basswood, the little scale lumber. You put it. Where am I going? Where am I going with this? No,
Right.
right.
Hey, the price of wood nowadays, don't
well,
be
yeah,
burning that
it's like
stuff.
gold, right? I haven't finished the rest of the bench work on here because it's so expensive. Crazy.
But it's nice to plan ahead. Like I painted my ceiling dark blue,
Yeah.
and then I painted the walls with the clouds.
Yes.
I even took a concrete stain and stained a tannish brownish color.
Uh-huh.
So it's the whole room is sort of the scene. Now, the only area that kind of bothers me is underneath the layout,
Mm-hmm.
there's maybe 3 feet that is a curtain, just
Yeah.
a brown curtain that goes around it. Now,
Right.
it would be neat to take giant sheets of foam and carve in the name of the layout. Actually take some piping from the plumbing department at Home Depot and completely rust it. Just make it look
That
old
would be
and rusty
cool.
and have that
would be
attached
cool.
to it, like it's all supporting the actual layout.
Yep.
So yeah, just would be incredible to do that.
We did something like that on the Sundance Central at the Suncoast Center for Fine Scale Model Building.
Yeah.
The place that Dave Ravella started, where around the Sundance, we made a bunch of look like beams, and they just kind of cover the legs, and where the curtains, there's a gap in between all the curtains. I don't remember how many there were. There's, I don't know, 20 or 25 of them around the layout, but they look like these old wooden kind of edges of trestles or something like that. So it brought the theming down to the floor a little bit. There's still a curtain all the way around, but there's not gaps.
Yeah.
It's not real unsightly. It's nice and clean looking, and there's some continuity between the layout itself, which is basically a logging type of layout, and bringing that feeling into the room.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking about, where you're not only just seeing the layout, but then you're actually, there's something to be said about when you're, and I've said this before, that when you go into a space like that that's themed, it does do something to your mental state where you feel almost transported. And it does, like you were talking about, it's like a theme park. It doesn't have to be like a Disneyland, but when there's a continuity between your whole design, where your layout sits, there's something about that that's pretty amazing.
I remember seeing an article years ago in a Train magazine where the guy had built all the legs and support that held up the layout. He made it all look like steel girders and put rivets, but it was all wood.
Yeah.
He just did it all with wood.
Yeah, do it out of MDF.
Put it all together. But then the way he painted it, it looked like rusted steel girders that were holding up his layout. And
that's actually a really good idea. You could use we've used carriage bolts and the end of a carriage bolt, and maybe grind off the letters on the carriage bolt end and make it look like rivets. We've done that numerous times. Or made little simple molds out of the carriage bolt ends and just poured little bits of resin into those molds and then glue those on for rivets. But that would be really cool, almost like an elevated railroad, like a Chicago L or a elevated train in New York City kind of look, with the the Central Valley kits that had the lattice work stanchions or piers that held up the railroad. They have that wrought iron kind of lattice work. Something like that would be really, really cool. I think that would add a lot to a layout room. Heck, you could even run those up the wall and do arches over top of the wall.
Yep.
And through the ceiling. That would be really, really amazing. It just that gives that little extra bit of finishing that you don't see on a lot of layouts. Now, of course, it costs a lot of money, or it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It could cost a good amount of money. I suppose you could do it on the cheap too. But I think when people come over, they're more apt to remember the space when it's like that.
Yep.
Or you could have a layout like George Selio's, where it's all layout when you go into it.
Yes. At the Colorado Model Railroad Museum here, where I live, inside there is all train, just old train stuff.
Okay.
It's just incredible to see all the signs,
like railroad crossing signs and switch signs and switch machines.
I mean, it's actual real life stuff.
Yeah, well,
on the walls of the museum.
Yeah, and I guess you could say like tchotchkes, right? That kind of stuff's really cool too. And when it's done really well, it's neat. Like beadboard or that. Like the beadboard on the walls, like they used to use in the station, like the tongue and groove type of look. I really, really like that. Look at Dave Meek. He made that he took a chalkboard because his shop is in an old classroom, and he took part of one of the chalkboards and made it look like the station, like where they put that right up the schedules, right?
Yeah.
And he wrote towns that are on his railroad on the schedule board. That's really cool. That's just very unique. And so not only is the environment, I think, important, but I also think that your railroad itself, right, is first of all, your railroad if you're modeling a railroad and not modeling a diorama like we are, your railroad has to have a purpose, or at least I guess that's kind of the storyteller in me, right? That you have to have that reason for being. Why is your railroad there, right? My railroad on the dirt spot is because that's how they hauled the fish from out in the deep water ports. They hauled the fish back up to the town, and then they kind of rendered the fish and they processed it and canned it or whatever and sent it out to the ships that went back to the mainland. So this is like basically it's a fish railroad, if that makes any sense. Like the narrow gauge cranberry railroads. We have the narrow gauge fish railroad, which I don't think any of them ever existed. If they did, that would be cool. But
I understand there's people that have logging layouts. There's people that it's definitely moving a specific type of freight from one end of the layout to the other end.
Right. So, I think it matters to set your story. So
definitely.
You walk into the room and this is a logging railroad, or there should be things on your layout. A lot of people that model the Sierras, right, or the coastal redwoods in California and Oregon. When you look at one of those layouts, there should be big trees. You really want to dwarf your trains, and visitors can immediately see that, and they immediately know, oh, I'm in the redwoods. I don't know what kind of redwoods they are initially, but I'm in the redwoods. There's these massive. They had out east. They had the chestnut trees, right, out east, that were just gigantic, huge trees. And those chestnuts, some of those trunks are as big as some of the coastal redwoods. So that's something that could be kind of a scene setter or a mood setter. How about and actually I started working on it behind me in the clouds. You don't see a lot of, and we've heard people talk about this before, like things like rain or stormy weather, right?
Yeah.
Well, what if your railroad is on the East Coast? Maybe it's in Appalachia, right? And it's cold. Maybe you're modeling winter where there's no leaves on the trees. What's the sky look like? Is it going to be a crystal blue sky? Well, occasionally, but that doesn't exaggerate the mood. The mood would be that gray, dreary sky. And there's a couple people out there that do it really, really well. I
enjoy going to people's layouts where they have music and sound. I think that really adds to it.
Right. Sound and lighting. That's another thing that's so important that you probably miss. I mean, if I'm walking into your layout specifically, right, and all of a sudden I hear seagulls in the background, right, like or a boat horn, honking. That, I mean, with your look and your feel that you have a layout and seeing all the waterfront area, and then you hear, whatever sound a seagull makes, right, and a boat or a foghorn or something like that. That just adds so much. And to get a little MP3 player and a little speaker, it costs almost nothing to do that, and you could find sounds like that online. Luckily, now for a long time we've had DCC with sound, and so locomotives have sound now, and it envelops the viewer a lot more than what it used to. But there's so many little things that can be done, just lighting, having lights in certain areas on your layout, and maybe your whole layout room isn't blindingly bright, it's just around your layout that's bright, then it immediately takes the focus off the other things in the room, where if you can't theme out your room necessarily, that you can put the focus on the layout and focus on the colors of your layout and the textures on your layout, so people just look at that area. I think that's really cool, and I think it's a missed opportunity that a lot of us have.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Putting thought into the entire story.
Yeah.
Not just the layout, but the surrounding. Yeah, the whole storytelling aspect of it.
Yeah, and I mean, people sometimes they go down to the time, they go down to the day, the
Yeah.
month, the year,
Yeah.
what hour of the day it was. Now, I'm not talking about doing that because for me, it's more of the feel of that time. It's like
Sure.
not to talk about the Franklin, South Manchester again, but you know that's in the 30s, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yep.
if he bumped it up, to the 40s or 50s with diesels or whatever, but makes it have that exaggerated feel of the 30s, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's really neat, and I think that's important for a viewer, even with modern layouts. You just see a lot of containers and maybe a lot of people don't like it, but graffiti, things like that you see on trains all the time now. The modern locomotives. It's the same type of thing. You set that feel, and I really think there's a lot that we could be doing as model railroaders to
Yeah, possibly a little more research, getting on Google and just looking at different areas and what their railroad yards look like or
research.
stations look like.
Yeah, they say that in the business that I'm in. Research, research, research. It's all out there. If you want to model the 70s and maybe the Penn Central in the 70s, what are your feelings you have about the 70s? The New York City in the 70s. What do you think about New York? You think of it as gray and dreary, like you see at the beginnings of all the old 70s TV shows, with the bums everywhere, kind of like what Los Angeles looks like now. But I mean, do you want to, or do you see it differently? Do you see it as like a happier, brighter time?
Yeah.
I remember it being, for some reason, really gray and dreary, and I just remember the look and the feel of the railroads back then.
Yeah.
But that's not how everybody sees it. That's for sure. And
Yeah.
How do you want this story to read for your viewers? I think that your layout, Jason, is you're doing kind of like the 30s, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's also fanciful, right?
Yeah.
It's
definitely.
I see your layout because your color palette is so well done. I see it as like almost like, even though everything's very weathered, I see it as almost, because the color palette's almost cheery,
Yeah.
and not in a bad way. Not in a bad way.
Yeah.
It's
what's interesting? Really, I've been from Chicago to LA. And I haven't really been to the rest of the country.
Sure.
But yet the oceanside seaport stuff that I model would definitely be all the way east. And
right.
I just haven't
or
I haven't really seen it or been there. So
there's a Ketchikan, Alaska. Is that what it's called? Similar, where it's all these kind of like brightly colored buildings all up on stilts on the waterfront. It's very similar. It has that kind of look to it,
I think my references all come from movies. That's where I pull all my ideas from.
I think all my ideas come from Popeye.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a good one.
Yes.
If you want a caricature coastal village kind of look, Popeye is a great movie to go look at. It's very exaggerated, but it's neat.
Yep.
It's really neat. Don't look at the current Popeye Malta set in Malta. You want to look at the movie Popeye Malta set, because they repainted it and now it looks like it's like a fluorescent rainbow, as opposed to back then it was a little bit more grimy, kind of real dingy kind of looking.
Yeah.
When you see, there's things that you could do on a layout also that will somewhat fool people for photography, right?
Oh,
you
think
about Malcolm Furlow. with this Denver Rio Chama Western. That layout was really
Yep.
small. You think about the San Juan
Yeah,
Central,
but it didn't look like it when he photographed
no,
it.
because he had these basically floor to ceiling mountains. You know,
Yeah.
they were huge, and you take that vertical scenery and you put these little narrow gauge trains on these really tall trestles, and all of a sudden you've taken an area that's really pretty little and making it look gigantic. And I think that that's not something you see very often anymore. That some people do it, the floor to ceiling type stuff. I guess it's kind of fallen out of favor because of, you know, it's probably harder to access your track. We've all learned that, you know, sometimes cleaning track is important.
Yeah.
But that's where you get those big dramatic scenes, and that also sets the mood in your railroad. You walk into something like that, whether it's a big layout or a little layout, you could say, wow, you know, I guess we're in the Rockies, right?
Yeah.
We're in Colorado. We're in this you know, Colorado narrow gauge type of area. Or, you know, maybe in the Sierras with the logging up there.
I've constantly tried to create depth on my layout, and it's just by creating height, moving buildings around, looking at it from all different angles. That's how you're going to achieve that depth.
And I know you do that, where you'll leave the buildings for quite a while. You'll place them, leave them, stare at them,
move them around,
visually frame them with other things around them, then move them around. So you're getting that balance, that harmony in the scene, no matter where you look at it. And that's also important.
Which is kind of backwards, because I think a lot of people, you know, lay their track and do their scenery and then put their structures there, and it's just kind of permanent. And well, I get all my structures done first, get them all placed exactly where I want, then start to put in my mountains and roads and scenery around that, and put in some trains, I guess.
Oh, what are those things? Well, you know, I kind of, you know, I barely have any track on my layout right now for the narrow gauge, but I have so little space that I knew I wanted to run. I got this wrong last time. I said dog bone, reverse loop. I knew I could only run a very, very tight reverse loop in HON 30, right? But because I had so many buildings built, I really had to set the buildings out and then see where I could get the track. I couldn't just lay the track because I already built all the buildings, or most of the buildings, right? So that it's completely backwards for most model railroaders. They're gonna talk about they're gonna work on their track first, because usually most model railroaders are concerned about operating trains, which I don't blame them, right? So they're going to worry about the track first, and then they're going to fit what buildings in they can. So I guess we kind of have the luxury of setting the scene with the buildings because that's what we were more concerned about, right? And then we kind of fit the track around that. But there are some pretty cool things that causes when you have to figure out how to get that track to go basically in and out of buildings. There's some really neat challenges. Like you have those high line kind of trestles in the back, you know, and that's challenging. And to be able to do that and then place buildings, you might have went an easier route if you did it the other way around, right? And it wouldn't have been as dramatic. So in a way, it's kind of like, you know, when, especially on the East Coast, the towns were first and then the railroads came. And the railroads, they tore down, raised a bunch of buildings, but they somewhat built the railroad around the town. At least on like spurs and little branch lines, not on the big things where they tore down tons of buildings and built like big stations and whatnot. So they kind of had to make do with what they had, right? And
Yeah.
that's kind of the way you're doing it. It's kind of the
Yep.
way I did it on this. It's like
Yeah.
we fit the railroad. The railroad's reason was because of the factories that were in the buildings, and the buildings were there first, and then they had to build the railroad. So it's not, even though it's completely backward from building a model railroad, it's not necessarily backward from the way that some of these towns were built.
Mhm.
You know, like out here in Fresno, California, out west, a lot of the railroads were put down first, and then naturally the towns sprung up around the railroad junctions or around stagecoach stops by railroads and whatnot. That's what happened out here. But on the East Coast, it was kind of the other way around. So it isn't necessarily for builders, it's backwards, but for the way things actually work, it's not necessarily backwards.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's where you get some of the, like, you go to downtown Cleveland. Not so much anymore because they've toured a lot of it out, but there's all these big like bascule bridges and lift bridges, and there's one bridge there that actually turns on a pivot. And it just, they were fitting this railroad mess, and they were everywhere. They were, you know, the downtown is up on almost a bluff, and then it drops into a valley. So there's high tracks, and there's low tracks and mid-level tracks, and they're all over the place. And a lot of those were originally fit around the existing buildings. So it does can make for some interesting topology. And I guess when you do that, maybe you do get the sense of, yeah, this is an older city. You know, this city, the tracks were laid out around the town, as opposed to the town being laid around the tracks.
Sure.
So, I don't know. That's just my rambling thought for the day.
You know, I've played around with the thought of, I have two layouts. I have my HO scale layout, and then I have my G scale sci-fi layout.
Right.
Well, what if it was in the same exact spot, just different years?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Now we're getting heavy,
right?
Whoa. So if it was so basically you had that your town, your HO layout, in a couple thousand years or 1,000 years or something, your G scale layout exists in that same spot.
Yeah.
Is that
so
what
if
that's
it's
actually
like,
really cool? Yeah, that's actually.
So maybe 1935 in one layout, and then the other layout is 6035.
Right.
Right. Like,
that's cool. That's actually,
Yeah.
how many people have done that? I mean, I kind of thought about that when I was taking this layout, and I'm like, I want to tie this layout, which is supposed to be on an island out in the middle of nowhere, thousands of miles away from mainland. And I tied it back to my DirtSpot.7 little ON30 diorama, because that was in the past. That was supposed to be 100 years ago. Okay. Or less than, maybe it's like 70 years ago. And then I wanted to tie it into my old layout I had 20 years ago. Now, this is supposed to be about 20, 25 years after my layout that I had back when I lived in Ohio. But they're all in the same universe. So my ON30, my HON30, and my HO layout are all in the same universe, just in different times within that universe. They're not in the same place. But I really like that idea you have of it being in the same place.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. It's like you should have one feature that's still there on both things, you know?
Yeah.
There's like some I don't know, like some concrete obelisk or something that's in both places, or a mountain or something. That's actually
that
really
would be
neat.
Cool.
I've never heard of anybody doing that, and I didn't know you were thinking about that, but I really like that idea. That's actually pretty darn neat. Good thinking, Jason. That's very creative. That's very creative. So yeah, like if you think about your sci-fi dioramas, you have the one where it's got like the drainage ditch that runs beside it and the brick, you know.
Yeah.
And like if you said, oh, maybe this is, you know, a couple hundred years into the future or something, that could easily be remnants from something that's on your HO layout. Easily.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So like it's an old basement of one of the buildings, and they built up on top of it, and it became, its current state. That's really, really neat. That's actually very, very intriguing. I like that a lot. I think that's really cool. I don't know if I know that John Allen did a thing where he had built part of his layout, and then he kind of fast forwarded a little bit into the future and said, okay, I'm going to take this grade and I'm going to lay track on this grade after it was already built. Like I'm laying track after the layout was built. After the scenery was put in, he decided to lay track. To me, I'm sure to him too, that seems insane. I'm sure he was going, what am I doing? But it's interesting, right? It's a hard challenge. It's a challenge. Yeah. Yep. So I could see that where he kind of advanced his layout a little bit into the future in that area, at least. So that's also really interesting. Like where, and I know that people have, Tony Custer did that, where he was doing a lot of, or Tony Custer did it, Alan McClellan did it with the Virginian and Ohio, where they were modeling a certain area, like the steam to diesel transition period, like in the 50s. And then they modernized into like the 70s. So they updated the automobiles, the locomotives, the rolling stock, the topography. Many of the buildings stayed the same, but maybe received new paint jobs. So they were able to kind of modernize their layouts. So that is kind of neat. That's something you don't see a lot of people do. You see a lot of people where they run a lot of mixed stuff, especially on like modular groups, where they'll have like modern diesel engines with steam. But this was more of like they took the whole idea of the railroad. Maybe they went from an old manual CTC panel to like a computerized operations system. That's a hefty challenge to take on, but it's extremely interesting how we can progress our railroads basically like real time does, and advance them. Maybe put in from manual semaphores into actual electric signals and things like that. But I never knew that you were thinking about doing the G scale in whatever. Do you know what your cities are called? Do your cities have names?
No, but the layout, all my layouts have been named the same. It's named after my grandfather, who got me into the layout. So it's called the Francis Marne and Southern Layout. Or Railroad.
Railroad. Francis
Marne. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
So maybe the G scale version could be like maybe use the initials or an acronym or something to make it like all like fancy, or maybe the Francis Marne and SpaceX Layout Railroad or something like that. I don't know. I really like that idea. That's something I've never really thought about, is having two different layouts and I suppose people have torn down old layouts and said, I'm going to build a very similar layout, but it's more modern. It's more updated. It's maybe bringing it a little bit more current. I'm sure people have done that. I'm sure it's been written about. I'm not familiar with many other than, like I say, Tony Custer or Alan McClellan that did that. And they actually interchanged with each other. So they had each other's locomotives, like their two railroads actually interchanged, which is also a really cool thing, that you can have a couple friends can have each other's locomotives or rolling stock or whatever on each other's layouts, because there's some imaginary interchange somewhere where the two railroads interchange. I think that's really cool. I like that a lot.
My biggest fear in this hobby is completing my layout. Like running out of room, not having any more room for any structures, and being done, because I'm going to keep building. So then I guess I have to go to just dioramas after I'm done building.
Or you have to tear down the layout and build a new one, because you've never done that before.
Yeah.
No, when I did the water scene, a month or so ago, and they were saying, man, you're going to finish the layout like overnight. You're going to do the scenery and it's going to be
Yeah.
done. And yeah, that is true. But the spot I'm working on right now, the urban area, is not
Mhm.
nearly as difficult as a swamp area is going to be. There's a ton of trees going to be in that swamp. It has to have the feeling of a swamp, and that's kind of why I put the
Uh,
gray, stormy sky behind the swamp. I want that to be darker, big tree, a very full canopy. So when you're looking into the swamp, it feels like you're in a backwoods swamp. That's what I really want it to
yeah.
feel like. Like
Yeah.
the island is decent size, and you're kind of along a mangrove swamp that it might transfer back into like a hardwood swamp, or something, or a cypress swamp where it's really dark and there's
You
big
got to
big
get a
trees.
soundtrack with like crickets and frogs.
Yeah, totally, of course. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's got to have that, and then of course the harbor side is going to have like you're saying, the seagulls and the
Uh-huh.
pelicans, whatever noises pelicans make. I
Yeah.
don't know what that is,
Yeah.
but it definitely has to have that. But of
Yeah.
course, like I say, I want to have the railroad in a kind of in its own location. I want to have it in
Yeah.
its shed, or it's whatever I'm going to
Yeah.
call it when I make that. Whenever lumber prices come down, right?
Yes. Oh my
I
gosh.
don't want
Yeah.
to spend $10,000 on lumber for something I should be
Oh
able
my
to spend five
gosh.
thousand dollars
Yeah.
for, right? So,
Yeah.
I want it, but I also, like I say, I like the idea of the Carolwood barn to be a little bit more rustic. So as you're walking in, you kind of know you're going into something unique, and that's why I want to set that tone, or set that mood. I think
Yeah.
that's really important.
Yep.
I really do.
Yeah.
So I think that it's going to be a challenge with a smaller layout, you know,
Mhm.
but one that I think it's going to be a real fun challenge to
Yeah.
give it that feeling, you know.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think with your layout, with your G scale layout, that's going to
Uh-huh.
be so unique. I mean,
Yeah.
other than like Lego futuristic layouts, how many times have you seen something like what you're planning on doing?
Yeah.
I don't
Yep.
know if they exist. I don't know if
Uh,
I've ever seen one.
it, it's so fun because, like I said, you can go to Home Depot and there are so many things that you can buy in there to use on the layout. They're
Yeah,
fit. They're
yeah,
the
no,
right scale. They're cheap. You just paint them. Yeah, it's
and that's,
incredible.
I see stuff all the time that I kind of like stash away because I say, now I look at it and go, it's probably not going to work for HO,
Uh-huh.
but for a larger scale like what you're doing, it would totally work.
Yeah.
So many everyday
Yep.
use things. Um,
Yeah.
I do keep looking at things, going, what can I use? Just random things that I'm going to throw away. That I say, what can I
Yeah.
use? Now, luckily, I have the luxury of my railroad is on this different planet, I guess you could say. So I can make some
Uh-huh.
things really funky, and they don't necessarily have to make complete sense,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
maybe they do their fish differently there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is interesting to be able to, this is one of the main, I feel like, creative outlets in the hobby, is setting that mood, or setting that
Yeah.
scene, you know. And
Yep.
you have two completely different, almost polar opposite type of
Yes.
moods, or scenes, or themes going on. You have this
Uh-huh.
30s East Coast fishing, not really a village because it's more of a city, right? And then
Yeah.
you have this like kind of really weathered Star Warsy futuristic, but that's a long time ago in the past, a long
Yeah.
time ago. Uh,
Yeah.
so it, and I think if you tried to work with a continuity there between the two, that would even create more of a challenge, but it would make stuff very, for you personally as an artist,
And
it would make stuff more interesting. Right?
oh yeah, definitely. And that's why I've never said that it's like it's set in Maine, because that just it limits you.
Yeah, sure.
Totally limits you.
Sure.
So
now you have to have all these big rocky coasts and little mini Prince miniature lobsters everywhere. And you can't.
And
if
you that's your thing, if you're into doing research and trying to recreate something from the past, that if that's the enjoyment you get out of it, more power to you. That's great.
It's more of the feeling, right? It's more the feeling that you get when you look at it. And you just say, hey, I remember that. Whether you remember it or not, whether it's Baltimore or whether it's, it's out in the Chesapeake Bay, or it's, some part of New York, or it's Boston, or it's Maine, it's still got that kind of coastal feeling. I mean, it could even be like, some parts of the Caribbean, even though you don't have the flora there for that. It could be that, who's to say? So I think, I guess, don't let anybody kind of dictate. Do what you like, right?
Yeah.
And I know we say that all the time, build what you like, do what you like, but I think people still tend to let others dictate. It should be this way because this is the way it happened.
Yeah.
I think just as long as you're not like so crazy outlandish, and you can be, of course, that it feels good to you, and hey, that's what matters.
You spend the most time with your layout.
Yeah.
More than anyone else.
Well, unless
you see it all the time.
Unless you're super, super wealthy and you're having somebody build the entire thing for you.
Right.
So, I mean, that could be the case too, but it's still your layout,
Yep.
And I think that's what's really.
And you want to be excited when you're in the room, when you're in the layout room, or even your workshop. You want to be excited to be in there, because if you're not, you're not going to get much done, right?
Well, and I think that's one thing I think about when I'm building models. There's certain times when I build a model and I could step back and go, yeah, that's cool. I haven't been able to do it lately because it's been 179 degrees. So I get out here and I go, oh, I can't take it anymore. I'm melting and, dripping. But when you can step back and look at what you're working on, you get that kind of like, yeah, I really like this. Well, same thing goes with your layout. When you can sit back and go, oh, I really, whether just running the trains around, you're not operating, maybe you're just like, yeah, this is cool. I really enjoy this. This is calming. This is my relaxation. That's what's important,
Well, I think people thought it was crazy when I tore down my last layout, but
I did.
I tore it down for that exact reason.
Yeah.
Well, sure. I didn't enjoy it anymore. It didn't allow me to be creative.
Right.
So I just had to start over.
And a lot of people were like, what the heck are you doing? This is awesome. This layout's amazing, and, but it's got to feel right to you, and if it doesn't feel right, then, hey, start it over.
Yep.
Nobody's, obviously there's financial constraints with everybody, right? But other than that, do what, if you can afford it, even if you can't, heck, rip it apart and plan for the future on it, make it so you feel good about it. Don't build for anybody else. So, I mean, that's the way I feel. I really want to build some of these buildings that look like they're from, Asia, like in the, Hong Kong kind of slums district. I really like that stuff. I really like stacked buildings. We've talked about that before. So I'm working on this boat I'm working on, I'm stacking the little squatters areas on top of other areas. I just really enjoy that. I don't know why. To me, that's really visually interesting. And so I really like that.
Yeah.
So it's just about what we like. And once again, it's that, like I say, that mood that you feel good in it, but then when other people come in, they kind of get it. Oh yeah, I get what you're going for. And sometimes they won't, but who cares?
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, I don't know if you have anything else to talk about. This is going to be a short one.
I don't think so.
I'm about, I don't know, it's probably 102 in here. So
yeah,
but
well, we should wrap it up so that you don't.
So I don't melt. I could work on look at my boat. See my boat?
Yeah.
Here's my.
Oh my gosh.
3D printed. It's on a weird base. I get that because that's a foam I had, but it's all 3D printed. The boat is.
Gosh.
And so I'm putting all these
awesome.
multi levels on here. I really enjoyed building this thing. We printed it in 3 pieces and I glued them together, and then I just sanded it and filled it. But I really enjoyed building it, and so I want to build some more like steel things, some hard surface things that's not all wood. I really want to do some more stuff like that. So I don't know exactly what I want to do, but for the layout, that's going to be beached up in the very end of the harbor, up towards the city. Like they pulled it up on this beach.
Okay.
And it just got left there, and because it was left there, people took it over, because in Bergen you sleep wherever you can. And so there was a boat haul, and so they started turning that into a place to sleep. But
I can totally understand though why you want to build more things like that look like metal. I mean, we use ammo product,
right,
and it's perfect to recreate metal.
Well, that's the thing is like,
metal.
I mean, it's almost cheating using the ammo products that, you want to make it look like rusted metal. Okay. Ding, 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 ding. All right. Done. Yeah. Just follow the directions and it'll look great. Right.
Well, today on Facebook, I posted, I painted a bunch of castings from Rusty Rail.
Right.
And it's like metal stuff and
My
wood.
God, they look so good. And Rusty Rail is Rusty Rail. I got to get some of that. Rusty Rail is 2 blocks away from me, right over there. I can almost throw a baseball.
Oh man!
So yeah, I mean that's cool. All those castings, those detail parts, the truck you did, the garage, really, really, really cool stuff. And I want to take the ammo stuff and some of their. I should have some streaking brushers come in here soon.
Okay.
I've never used one-shot primer yet. So I want to use that. So I have some of that coming in, and I'll be very interested to see how all that works. But I've been using, for the most part, it's all ammo, some of the rusty colored pan pastels with alcohol. I mix them together, and man, I just love it. Scratches, heavy scratching effects. Oh my God, chipping effects.
Yeah,
stuff is just cool. I way overdo it. I get it. I way overdo it, but I just love it. It's so fun. It's so fun. Yeah. So, but anyway, until next time, I think, guys, we're gonna call this one, right? And Jason, you got anything else you want to talk about?
Nope, I think that's it.
You got some good videos coming up pretty soon. I heard you talk about, so I'm pretty excited about that. That's going to be cool.
Cool.
Yep. So, and I am, hopefully when it cools down here soon, I will be doing more scenery. I've been working on a static grass applicator with a negative ion generator, and I bought one.
Well, and you've burned up 3? 2,
yeah. So
3?
The first one I bought, was Gary Goldsworthy made one, and he said, "Here, use this." And I did, and I bought one. I bought exactly what he told me to buy, and it worked good. But somehow I did something that burned up the transformer. It was a 12-volt transformer. So I got another.
The heat of your garage.
It probably is.
No.
It probably is. Pieces are overheating. Then I got another 12-volt transformer, and somehow something happened where they both burn up at the same time. So I got another transformer, and then I got another ion generator, and I hooked that up, and I used it for about 5 minutes, and it worked perfectly. And I was making all these little tufts, and
Uh-huh.
and it started acting funky. It wasn't creating the static, and I could hear it making all this like staticky, sparky sounds. So I unplug it, and I sat down with it, and I plugged it back in. And the second I plugged it back in, I hear pop, and just smoke just starts streaming out of the side of the handle. And here, like literally, the side of the ion generator kind of almost exploded. It exploded out the side and actually blew a hole through the side of my handle. I don't know where the parts went. It's probably
Wow.
embedded in my ceiling somewhere.
Oh
And
my
it
gosh.
shot for like 5 seconds. It shot like a stream of smoke out of it. And so, I hurried up and unplugged everything. I got another ion generator. I wired that one up. Now, this is the way they're supposed to be wired, okay? It's just that the ion generators are super cheap, the ones I'm getting. The first one I had was pretty good. I did something to mess it up. These I just found off Amazon. Hooked up the second one. I said, I'm not going to put it in the handle. I'm just going to wire it up, wire the on-off switch, plug it in, and plug it in. And it wasn't on for 10 seconds. And pop! Same thing happened. Smoke come out the side really quick. Blows. I said, good thing I don't have my hand over this damn thing. So I've ordered 2 more, maybe 3 more ion generators. I'm going to get it right. I'm definitely going to get it right because I was having a lot of fun.
By
doing my
this time,
static
you
grass.
could have bought an expensive static grass
Yes.
applicator.
Yes.
and
Okay,
been
so
done with it.
what's different about these? All right.
Yes.
Okay, the static grass applicators, you have a charge on the mesh, right? And then you have your
Uh-huh, yeah.
negative. You have your negative connector, which is usually hooked up to an alligator clip, and you'll clip it up to either your flock box or the area, the ground where you're working on.
Yeah.
And
A lot of people put a nail in their scenery and
Exactly.
clip to the nail, and
The way this works is actually really cool. There, you have a copper disc that's in the back of your cup. So you're running the positive to that copper disc, right? And then about an inch or an inch and a half in front of that is your mesh, okay? And then you run your negative to your ground, just like you normally would. So you can't accidentally spark anything with the mesh. So if your mesh hits the ground or hits your hand or whatever, you're not going to get a spark. The copper disc is up inside the cup, so you can't touch it. And with these, they're 20,000 volt negative ion generators. They make a lot of static. It's going to spark you. It wakes you up, right? There's no amperage, so it's not going to kill you, but it really works well. I mean, that static grass stands straight up. But there's something I'm doing wrong, and I don't know what it is yet, and I'm gonna figure this darn thing out. So in a couple days, I'm supposed to have a couple more negative ion generators. But I will say that when I was making my tufts, man, it was like immediate. I just had a little piece of parchment paper in the bottom of a little metal tray. I clipped my negative onto the metal tray, put some dots of matte medium in the matte medium on the parchment paper. Went over. You don't even really have to shake it. You just kind of go like this, and it just pulls that static grass, and it's straight up and down, and it looks just perfect. And I also tried the static grass flock, which is like 1 millimeter, really, really short stuff. It looks really good, but I need to get something that actually works and doesn't burn up. So I'm going to keep trying.
It's like you're building a flux capacitor.
Kind of, especially when you get shocked by it. You know you're building something. Gary has never had any problems with his, ever. Huh. So there's just something I'm doing wrong.
Well,
I don't
that's
know what
because he's on a boat. Maybe.
Well, maybe that's what it is.
No.
He's on a boat, and that, so
yeah.
Maybe it's Korean electricity. I don't know, but I'm really excited to use it. I'm just excited for it not to burn up because it's a real bummer when you solder everything together and then it explodes on you. But it's been an interesting challenge. I have looked and said maybe I'll just buy one of the notch, there's got to be a really good static grass applicator out
there. No, because it's your personality, James. You're gonna make it work. I know you will.
It may take 46 negative ion generators. It will cost me $700, but I will get a damn static grass applicator to work eventually. It was cool because I was able to make 80 tufts in 2 minutes, yeah. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. It's just, I got to play around with it a little bit more. I don't know if it's maybe the leads coming off that carry the high voltage. They are really, really thin. There's a lot of insulation on them, but the actual wires are really small. It could be they're just cheap. All of these ion generators I'm using, they all look almost exactly the same. But a weird thing with them is that they all have these little heat sinks on them, but the heat sinks are buried in resin inside the ion generator. So I'm not sure how the heat sink is working and all of them are like that.
Yeah.
They have a little pot where you can adjust the voltage from, I think, 10 to 20,000 volts. But the heat sink is completely buried in the resin, even with the different manufacturers, or at least the different sellers. They may be all the same manufacturer, but I don't know how that's, the first one I had even though it worked well, it got really, really hot. So, but it just stopped working and never burned up. So I don't know why they're not putting these heat sinks on the outside, to work the way they're supposed to. They're little aluminum guys this big, but they're completely buried in the resin. And I've never been smart enough to think, hey, maybe I should just pull this thing apart and see what it's made of.
To all of our listeners, if someone could please send James a static grass applicator to save his life so he doesn't get electrocuted.
I can buy one, no problem. I can buy one. I need one of those little shorties though, because there's a bench over top of there's a shelf over top of my layout, so I can't use the big long handle ones. But yeah, I mean, I could easily buy one, but what is the best one?
Yeah.
You could buy the $200 one, but does that mean it's any good, or is it just expensive? Right?
Yeah.
I know this one I had made here, this one of Gary's design, worked absolutely fantastically. It was amazing. I've made the little bug zapper ones before and all that.
Maybe our listeners can tell us.
Yeah, I think if you know of a really good static grass applicator, because they're used in all kinds of hobbies, right? If you know of a really good static grass applicator, post it in the comments or message us directly.
I need one.
Yeah.
I need one for my layout.
I think Woodland Scenic should send us a couple and we should test them out, right? I think that's what they should do.
I think so.
No, but I would like to know if the Woodland Scenic one works good. I'll just use that. But I do want to try to get this one to work because I really, really like the performance of it. It was pretty amazing.
We need to get
it
ammo to make one.
We should.
Right?
They do have some
ammo to make one. Yeah,
they have a few scenic products. There are some. They got some static grass tufts and things like that. I think ammo should make a static grass applicator. I agree. I'm going to look into that. I think they should. One that doesn't burn up. That would be good.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So enough nonsense from us. I will say, all you guys, thank you for listening in because I really appreciate it. And follow me on james.a.powell on Instagram or dirtspot.7 on Facebook. And then you can follow Jason on every single social media there is. Jason Jensen Trains. Jason Jensen Trains. Yes. Do you have a TikTok yet, Jason? Do you have a TikTok yet?
It's so funny because my daughter really wanted me to get one.
Oh, really?
And so I downloaded it on my phone and I started watching all these crazy videos and I'm like, this is not for me.
No. There's actually some really good process videos. Most of the videos, at least that I see, are nuts. They are crazy.
Yeah.
But there's some like little neat cooking videos. There's some cool process videos. We just downloaded it for work, and we're going to start a channel, or whatever you call it, a TikTok or whatever the heck it's called.
Yeah.
We're going to start one. It's going to be a little nuts, but that's fun. We know with the stuff we do, it'll be kind of fun. But there are some really cool ones. There's probably thousands of them, but most of them I see are just ridiculous. And it's more of like a kid type thing.
Well,
but
I just keep trying to improve my YouTube channel. I mean, sound, lighting, I just constantly trying to improve. And I want to thank everyone because I just went over 25,000 subscribers.
25,000 subscribers. That's awesome. That's amazing. That's really, really, really cool.
Man, I just can't thank people enough. It's just been incredible.
Yeah, that's really, really impressive. I think that there's not a lot of people in the model railroading community that have that many subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty awesome. Let's see if we can get that to 50,000 now.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. All right.
Instagram keeps growing.
Yeah.
And Facebook.
It's very, very cool. I think you provide a lot of really good information out there for all types of model railroaders or all types of builders. So Jason locked up, or at least I locked up, and he's still talking, or I'm talking and he's talking. There you are.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Now you're moving.
No? Yeah.
Yeah. You were going like this.
All right.
Yeah.
I think we need to wrap this up.
Very good. We'll wrap it up. We'll edit all this out so it makes some kind of sense. All right, guys. I will see you later. Goodbye. And from Jason.
Thank you all.
All right. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.